Hi, my name is Bria Griffiths. I'm a brain retraining coach. I have healed through my own severe chronic illness, over 80 symptoms. I have a testimony through the DNRS program that you can see on their website and also on my own website at briacatrin.com. I just want to jump on and share a nugget that hopefully can help those of you who are struggling with this. And I'm going to call it one key to consistency. So I never struggled with consistency. So I was always on this lookout for what is it that's different about how I approach brain retraining versus how other people have approached it, so that why aren't they being consistent? And one of the keys that I found is this. I had a different goal than a lot of people, my clients that come to me. They might think they have the same goal that I had, but when push comes to shove, it's actually is a little bit different, and that it ends up with them tempted to, or not even say tempted, just ending up not following through and being consistent. So my goal was not to feel better when I was doing DNRS. I understand, yes, I was very sick. I was coming to this as a healing modality, but I had that backing up to that 30,000 foot view, big picture of what do I want in my life. And I understood that my health was just a conduit to get me to a place of freedom, liberty, where I can be the mom that God's called me to be, to do what God's calling me to do in this world, to live out an adventure that requires health. And also, one of the big things I think that sets me apart from a lot of people is my focus very much was on wiring in truth and my faith in Jesus. And that sounds weird, or maybe like I've just brainwashed myself to believe in Jesus. And I understand if you don't have a faith in Jesus, I would probably believe that about you too and think you're a little bit crazy. And I'm okay with that. But I came to believe in Jesus through reading the Gospel of John with my friend in the desert. And I have to say, first of all, I'll share that I was embarrassed when I first realized I believed in Jesus, because I'd always made fun of people that did. But aside from that, once I realized that, wow, Jesus really is who he says he is. He really did. He is God who was always was and always will be. And he came down in a man form, a human form. And he came and he went around and performed all these miracles, healed all kinds of people, described the human heart better than anybody else. It's recorded more than any historical documentation. And then he sacrificed himself by going to die on a cross. And then he rose from the dead, and hundreds of people saw him. And then you've got all these people that followed him, were willing to be martyred for him, and eyewitnesses of saying all these miracles and everything, that the Bible says happened. Whoa. So my whole worldview started to change, and I realized that I don't want to lose this. And I realized I was always a truth seeker, and I pray that you are, and everyone should be, a truth seeker, because there is an absolute truth. We can all say we live in this post-truth era where people seem to think that it's okay to have your own truth. And what that does actually to Christianity is it basically makes it of moderate, kind of importance, I guess, to people. Whereas, because it's saying, oh, good that you found God. Like, I'm really happy for you. But the reality is that it either has no value whatsoever to believe in Jesus, or it's of utmost importance. So obviously I came to the understanding it's of utmost importance that I believe in Jesus, in who he says he is, and that I was reading the Gospels, and two verses that stick out to me. One is Mark 11:23, and the other is in Matthew, in the teens somewhere. But Mark 11:23 is the verse that says, Jesus talks about, he says, "For surely I say to you that whoever speaks to this mountain, be thou cast into the sea and be removed, and does not doubt it in his heart, he will have whatever he says." And I understood that I can believe and not believe. I can have unbelief. And so I realized I need to get all my old beliefs out of me, because those are hindering me from actually my faith, which, because the world essentially goes against Jesus. And, oh, that's going to be loud for a minute. I need TV. And then also another verse that comes to mind is where Jesus says, I don't remember which chapter it's in, but he always speaks in parables, in these little kind of word picture stories, and he says that you need to build your house on the rock and not on the sand. That's who someone is, a doer of the word. Somebody who takes his word and starts to do it is somebody who builds their house on the rock and not on the sand, so that as the storms of life come, because Jesus says, you know, you're going to have trials and tribulations in this world, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. But so I understood that I need to be someone who builds my house on the rock, and the way to do that is to get out the things that I've built on the sand, which is lies and not truth. So I understood right away, okay, I need to wire in my faith in Jesus. And I said, wow, I've got this amazing tool of DNRS, and so that when hard times come, I don't get pulled away from truth. And I understand that sounds like I'm indoctrinating myself, but it is, anyway, I'm not going to go there right now because I don't need to defend the gospel. But a lot of people who are inconsistent in their practice, I would probably say, if you're listening to me, you're probably like, wow, yeah, no, that wasn't really my goal. My goal is just to get healthy, feel well. That's about as far as your goals have gone. So I would challenge you to step back and see your health as a conduit to something much, much greater. And in fact, your journey of brain rewiring, I pray, never ends, because there's always more to see and a vision to be cast into your future of change and increase. That's a life with God. So people who tend to be inconsistent, they might start to feel better, and then they get pulled away and do other things because they might not even realize it, that they're just trying to feel well, and they don't really have a place that they're going. And so when you're anchored into a goal and you're saying, I'm committed to this, like I was committed to my faith in Jesus, I was committed to truth, I was committed to being the mom that God's calling me to be, committed to being limitless and having options, I realized that my health gives me better options. So I had that big picture view of my life that I, again, in brain retraining, as you're doing visualizations, you are casting that vision to yourself. So it gets easier and easier as you go. And same thing with people who are not really seeing shifts, or their symptoms have gotten worse or new ones, and then they get inconsistent, not working, so the reality is their goal could have been just to feel well. And I hooked into my bigger goals and really committed to those, and looking at then what does my daily life look like if I'm really committed to these goals, that it was easier to go through the fire and easier to be willing to put myself in situations that were potentially going to make me uncomfortable, and not to question and realize that this is just a part of the growing pains, so to speak, and the change, kind of like anything that you're training for in sports. You tear muscles down to build them up. So I understood that it could get worse before it gets better. Did that make it easy? No. Did I have an easy journey? No, not at all. I went through hell on earth during brain retraining. I shouldn't say it that way, but it was really bad. But that's my own fault, not because it has to be. So you can get a coach who can help you avoid going down my mistakes. That's what makes me able to help a lot of people, because I can see them veering into ditches that I was like, let's get you out of that one and avoid that mine. Okay, so that's the one thing I wanted to share. And someone did ask me, and I didn't answer it on YouTube yet, so I figured I'd kind of answer it now. They're just curious, would you have been converted? Like, would you really be a Jesus freak if I hadn't been healed? And 100% yes, I didn't come to Jesus for my healing. I came to Jesus because he drew me in, and I realized that this is truth. And I had a lens through which now I could filter the entire world that made sense, whereas I never did before, and I always questioned. I mean, I was trained in evolutionary biology, yet it never satisfied me. So once I had that lens, and I already believed that in this loving, good God, and so even though I hadn't read the whole Bible yet, I still believe that there's no way that God keeps people from being healthy or would ever want somebody to remain sick or withhold healing from anybody, and like any of his children. So it was not possible for me to really go down some theology of sickness that I hear a lot in religion. So my relationship with God, knowing right from the get-go, he's a good God, he never leaves me, he loves me, was more than enough to maintain my faith in him and truth. Reality is, I understood that believing in Jesus is of utmost importance. And now that's hard for someone who's not a believer in Jesus to understand, because, sometimes people say to you when you have this faith, oh, good for you. I'm glad that, you found your truth, kind of thing. And it's sort of of moderate importance. But the reality is that Christianity is either of no importance and we're just complete fools, or it's of utmost importance. And obviously, coming to where I'm at now, I realized after understanding the Bible and Jesus that it's of utmost importance. So it was very, very important for me to continue to do everything to protect my faith and to grow that. Really, ultimately, actually not even grow. I didn't have to muster up faith. It was getting rid of the lack of faith or the unbelief or the doubt and the lies. And they just allowed my faith to grow. So I hope that answers that question. But yeah, I mean, I've prayed for things that, haven't happened yet that I believe God's told me yes. And you walk in endurance, and you don't always see breakthrough right away. And I continue to protect my faith in God and in who he is. And I don't get to a place where I blame him or get angry at him. Believe it or not, a lot of people probably don't believe me, but I've never been angry at God. I've never blamed God. And I guess I've never been deceived to believe that he's not a good God, and that he doesn't always love me, and that I believe he's always with me. So those things I've protected. And so I absolutely would have still believed in Jesus, and still would believe in Jesus if I were still vying for my healing. And I would never be willing to say that it's not God's will to heal me. So I hope that helps. So thank you for watching. I am hoping to give more updates at some point on what's going on with my coaching in the future. I know I had talked about group sessions. That's not that it's not going to happen. I just don't have a timeline yet, and things are shifting and changing, and life is busy, obviously, with kids. And I'm in prayer a lot with the Lord, just asking for direction right now, because I am finishing up my second year at Bible college, and there is a third year, and I'm just in prayer, and I'm waiting to hear from God, because as somebody who tends to be an being an achiever is not a bad thing, but I can feel like I get a word and then just, all right, let's go and let's do it. And I can end up getting into my own strength and doing it in my own strength versus allowing God to lead me and guide me in his way. So I am just waiting on that direction, and we'll see where that goes. So thank you for listening, and I pray that this blesses you today, and that you see your health as a conduit or a vehicle to all these amazing things that God wants you to have. I think that the promises of God is probably another reason I was so, secure or firm in that God's restoring all the years that the locust stole. He's giving me a double portion of honor and prosperity in the land, that he has plans that are not for evil, but for peace and for good and for a future for me. So I saw the entire Bible through the lens of really restoration, increase, and it's that faith, and that having then that goal of, well, then I'm going after what God says and who God says I am and who he is, that allowed me to continue to say, okay, day to day, I can continue to deepen
and grow deeper roots and only see increase in my life, even though it might not look like increase immediately in the temporary, but at some point what I'm sowing today is going to give me better options in my future. So as I'm praying today, as I'm doing my practice today, as I'm reading and getting into and soaking in his word today, as I'm worshiping today, as I'm cultivating, relationships today and peace in my family and intimacy, that I will reap a harvest. So I was always focused on the options and the outcomes, and so these are just the conduit rather than seeing what I'm doing as just a chore, kind of like working out. If you're exercising and you're struggling to be consistent or have the motivation, it's not like every single day you're like, oh sweet, let me just go and rip apart my muscles and shred them and then so that they get bigger. But if you have a goal of being fit for a specific reason, especially sports, then obviously there's that motivation to be better, stronger, faster, win more games, jump higher, whatever it is, right? So what's the bigger goal? And then what are your daily actions that you can put in place to continue moving you towards that goal? Okay.